Last year, I was staying in a university hall for my final year. It's a private building, so not connected to the university, and out in the city near the main town. We have a car park, but nobody really uses it because we are poor students and it costs money to park there. So mine was only one of 2 or 3 cars at the given time. The car park isn't well lit and it's to the side of the building, so you have to walk for about 2 or 3 minutes to get into the main door. I was sitting in my car one evening after getting back from the gym, just scrolling on my phone because my back seat was warm and it was dark and raining outside, so I couldn't be bothered to get up yet. I was reading an article when suddenly someone started knocking on my window, which was really odd. It was a man dressed all in black, and he started telling me how his friend had seen me through the window and thought I was really attractive, so he wanted him to get my number. I responded, "No, that's a bit odd, and I don't feel comfortable with it." He continued to be insistent for a while, practically begging me to get out and give them my number or my social media details, telling me I should come over and speak to his friend, who was oddly standing at the other side of the car park, further away from the building. I kept saying no and scrolling on my phone to show them I wasn't interested. He finally relented and walked away. I texted one of my friends to ask if he'd come and get me and walk with me to the building. As I was waiting, this man returned, but now with his hood up, and he started banging loudly on my window, saying that I was being rude, ungrateful, calling me all kinds of names. I kept staring at my phone and pretended I couldn't hear him. Then he started trying my door handle. Thankfully, I had locked my car after the first encounter, and then he began violently pushing into my car when it didn't work. I still kept ignoring him and texted my friend that he should probably bring some other friends with him. My friend was taking a long time to read my message, and I was terrified, but for some reason didn't think to call the police, probably because I was scared of things escalating. The guy at my window had calmed down after a few minutes and walked off, saying that he'd leave me alone now. However, I watched him out of the corner of my eye join up with his friend and then maybe 3 or 4 other men. They walked in a way that they were out of sight, but I could see their shadows lingering as they kind of circled around my car and moved around the building, but staying in the dark. They lingered there for a while, until luckily another car came, which was obviously full of students going to a party due to the loud music and singing going on inside. This group of men left as they saw these people arrive, and I latched onto them and was able to walk with them as they entered the building. When I got home, my friend finally responded. He said that he'd actually heard about these guys before, apparently saying that they'd followed another girl into the building and into the lift a couple of days prior, then stood in the lift, making really gross sexual comments to her. She had to run to her door, lock it, where they'd then stand outside, knocking on the door and whispering for her to open it. We were able to report this to the building, who, to their credit, then hired a permanent set of security staff. We also got the CCTV footage of both incidents and were able to pass this on to police. For context, this happened about 20 years ago after Christmas. I had turned 6 a month prior. My mom went out one day and left my then 16-year-old cousin to look after me and my 2 older siblings, brother 8 and sister 11. My cousin decided to take us to the city, which was about 10 minutes away from where we lived. We took the bus, walked around the city in incredibly unsafe neighborhoods, with basically another child responsible for us, and after a few hours got tired and decided to go home. The city had a central area for the buses, not a bus station, but like a huge perfectly square field with some plants and flowers and bushes. Lining all 4 sides along the streets were a couple of bus stops and benches, so basically you could catch several buses at different times going from one place to another. Since it was just after Christmas, the bushes along the field were still covered in Christmas lights. As we waited for the bus, I began to wander away as I admired the lights, my cousin none the wiser. At some point I heard a man say hi. I looked up from the bush and he was smiling down at me. Thinking back on it once I got older, it was clear he was homeless and was probably on drugs. He had longish brown hair, was wet, had teeth that were black along the gums, and his clothes were incredibly dirty and torn, and he had several jackets on. None of this really registered in my 6-year-old brain though, so I just smiled back up and said hi. He asked if I liked looking at the lights, and I said, yeah. and I'll never forget this exact sentence. He said, "If you like Christmas lights, I've got some really cool lights at my house you'll love. Wanna come see them?" I eagerly said yes, so he reached down his hand to me and I took it. We started to walk away and were headed to the corner of the field where a few big buildings were. He said his apartment was just a couple of blocks away, so we were headed around the corner of the building when my arm jerked backwards and I turned to see my sister pulling me away from him. He didn't say a single word, just took off, instantly running. It took a few years for me to fully grasp the danger I was in. My sister and brother talked about what happened a lot and how scary it was. When I finally got a little older, I appreciated how terrifying that all was and how close I was to having my life change, or possibly end forever. If I had rounded that city corner with him, they never would have been able to find me in time because they wouldn't even know where to start looking before I disappeared around the corner and into the city. It's still something my family brings up occasionally to this day. It finally started raining here, so I took my son, 14 at the time, out mushroom hunting over the weekend. It was later than we would normally go, and the sun goes down much earlier now, but we were taking a quick trail to the river. We ended up taking a wrong turn and going through a big field, which the trail would take us back around to the main trail to the river. As we walked towards the main trail, the last group of people had left, and it was just me and my son. We walked along, and out of a thicket side trail came this weird man. He had a dog with him that was alert at his side. He was staring at us as we walked closer to him. And then he started giving us this wave, this really weird, slow wave. I was immediately uncomfortable and got goosebumps, but I didn't want to be impolite, so I half-heartedly waved back at him while telling my son to slow up a little. I didn't want to actually meet up at the junction. After a full minute of just basically walking really slow, the guy kind of just turned and began walking down the trail toward the main trail. So we continued to walk, but I didn't want to go too fast, and we stopped to look at some plants. So the guy and the dog got further down the trail, which curved to the right, and continued on 2 blocks to the junction. In the back of my head, I had a thought that this dude will be waiting around the corner, and sure enough, he was standing at the corner, off to the left and toward the parking lot, and to the right was the trail to the river. The guy was just standing there with his dog, staring at us, not moving at all. Both my son and I were like, shit, let's keep wide to the right, and saying, he looks old and we can probably run faster than him, and just generally planning for the worst in this situation. He kept staring at us as we approached. I asked if he was okay, and he kept staring back. He was greasy-haired, tiny round glasses, a blue windbreaker, played long shorts, about 50 years old. His dog was a small beagle mix. He didn't answer me at all. He just kept staring. We turned to the right and walked about a block. I had my phone cam facing me so I could watch him over my shoulder, and the only movement was him slowly shifting his direction to continue staring at us. I didn't say anything else to him. His stare was moderately unsettling, made more so by his lack of response, a motionless face, weird tiny glasses, and his slow wave at us like a zombie. He probably did end up leaving though, because on our way back he was no longer standing there by the main trail.